Hi everyone, this is Harmony, Divine Harmony from divineharmony.com, and I am here to talk about the major astrology coming in this very powerful year of 2020. So this is an overview video that is on my website, and it's actually free content, so it's accessible to everyone. And typically I try and get this up by January 1st, but it was quite an ending to a very powerful year in 2019, so I am recording it today on the 4th, and it'll be up hopefully by today. So thank you for your patience. In this video, I'm going to talk about the major things unfolding this year. If you want a really in-depth dive into 2020, I co-taught a weekend webinar with 6+ hours of content about 2020 and what's going on, looking at the major transits, looking at the historical cycles, looking at what's incoming socially, politically, environmentally, collectively. We looked at both USA and UK election charts. My colleague John Wadsworth and I co-taught this in early November, and now it's available on demand. And there's also one whole day that's dedicated to what is 2020 about for you personally, and looking at your chart and your sun and where things might be transiting. So if you want a deep dive, that's available. I'll make sure to put the link in the bio below. And also, one other thing I'm really excited about, I'm actually offering a free webinar on astrology and your shadow. And in the webinar, it's about an hour. There's 4 days, 4 different times, so you can choose one that works for you. I'm going to talk about this year and why it's exceptional for shadow work, what shadow is and why we need to work with it, and then looking at your sun sign in your chart and its expression of both lower self ego and higher self, and then giving you a practice to work with the shadow and the light integration of your sun. So I hope you'll join me. I will include the link in the bio of this video as well. It's free, and hopefully I'll see you online soon. The first one actually is January 8th, but there's 4 different dates through January 21st. So 2020, we are in an incredibly significant year. So we didn't just start a new year, which is already, very powerful, because it's seeding a new cycle, and people often have a lot of energy built up around the new year. It's like, okay, what are my intentions for this year? And, what do I want to set into motion? And so it's already got this new beginning energy, obviously. But we're also in a new decade, so it's a brand new 10-year cycle. And we're also heading into a brand new Saturn-Pluto cycle. We're in the midst right now as I record, completing a 38-year previous cycle that was seeded in the early 80s. And then we're starting a brand new 33-year cycle. The reason there's a difference there is Pluto has an erratic orbit. So sometimes he's closer to Neptune, and sometimes he's further away. And so the orbit is different depending on, where he's at. So we have huge new beginning energy, new year, new decade, new 33-year Saturn-Pluto cycle. But as I record this video, we're actually still in the ending of the old cycle, and we're in the middle of an eclipse portal. We had a solar eclipse on December 25th, Christmas for those who celebrate, in 2019, and then we're going to have a lunar eclipse January 10th. So already we're in eclipse portal, which is about massive endings and new beginnings, transformation and change, and then add in that it's happening over the new year, into a new decade, into a Saturn-Pluto cycle. And you can see we are in an incredibly profound portal of time. And it's really important to be very conscious and intentional with how you're ending things and beginning things right now, because there is so much cosmic energy supporting us in moving through that portal of the old into the new. And when we bring our consciousness and awareness and intention and conscious action into the mix, we're co-creating with the universe. So yes, let's just dive right in. We're going to start with January. January is huge. So January kind of gets us out of the gate with a big bang. We've got a lot going on this month. So on the 6th, which is 2 days from when I'm recording this, I don't know when it is when you're listening, but we have Jupiter on the karmic south node, And in 2019, part of what was so intense about 2019 is we had all these planets aligning with the karmic south node, notably Pluto, end of March, early April of 2019, and Saturn, May through September for 3 times. Pluto, the lord of the underworld, death and rebirth. Saturn, the lord of karma and the father of time, both on the karmic south node, has been like massive karma excavation, like looking at what's stagnant, toxic, stuck, rigid, patriarchal, old paradigm in some area of your life. Of course, it's different for everybody based on your sign. It was up. It was in our faces. It was like, oh, you gotta look at this. You can't get away from it. And if you rose to the occasion, if you really actually turned towards what was karmic and stagnant and toxic and like dealt with it, cleaned it up, ended it, completed it, transformed it, healed it, whatever, then this year, Jupiter on the South Node is amazing because he is the greater benefic, the great light. He brings massive light, and he's bringing light to the karmic South Node, to what's in the past that we've been needing to deal with. And if we've been doing the work, he's bringing the light at the end of the tunnel. He's also bringing opportunities for blessed endings, conscious death, auspicious completion. Because this is all South Node, you know, this is endings and karma and dealing with the past. But Jupiter, the greater benefic, is bringing his light. Now, if you've avoided doing your work all year in 2019, if you've put your head in the sand and, you know, kicked back too much alcohol or drugs to escape, or, you know, buried yourself in your work so you didn't have to deal, Jupiter can bring more fuel to the already hot and heavy fire. So tune in what's going on around January 6th, the first couple of weeks of this year, because it's really going to give you some insight into where you're at, where your work is, where you're being asked to go. So that's January 6th. On the 10th, we have the lunar eclipse in Cancer, and it's this amazing eclipse. I'll be writing a lunar insight on it a couple days before, hopefully, maybe 2 days before. And so we've got this eclipse in Cancer, and the only other thing that's there with Cancer is the North Node. And it's opposite everything in Capricorn. I think it's like Sun, Mercury, Saturn, Pluto, Ceres. I think Mercury's there. I'm trying to remember the chart. I don't have it in front of me, but it's like all these Capricorn planets opposing the Cancer eclipse. And if you know your astrology, you know that the nodes right now, North Node, evolution, growth, destiny is in Cancer, and the karmic South Node's in Capricorn. And so it's the shadow of Capricorn, where we're stuck, where we're karmic and stagnant, that's being illuminated. And the path forward to growth and evolution is Cancer, which is the divine mother. So it's about honoring the feminine, Mother Earth, honoring our inner child, our feelings, our emotions, our vulnerabilities, our sensitivities. You know, we live in kind of a Western patriarchal world where sometimes that's looked at as like weakness, but actually no. Being intimate with your feelings and your emotions and honoring all parts of yourself is actually key for strength and for healing and for integration. So this eclipse is magnifying where we're being pulled to our, you know, our path of growth and destiny, and what's, again, being eliminated that needs to be left behind, completed, released, let go of, or maybe transformed. But the form it's in right now cannot come with us into the future. Same day as the eclipse, Uranus, the rebel and revolutionary, stations direct, and Eris, the goddess of discord and chaos, stations direct. So we have 2 stationary planets that have kind of disruptive energy. The good news is it's disruptive in the sense of Uranus wants us to have freedom and awakening. Eris wants us to look at the shadow and own the crap and deal with what's not being addressed. And so both of them stationary on the day of an eclipse is making for a very powerful eclipse day. Then 2 days later, we have the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So starting a brand new cycle. You know, the positive side of Saturn is mastery, integrity, responsibility, accountability, discipline. The shadow of Saturn is karma and dogma and rigidity and control. The positive side of Pluto is transformation and evolution and really coming into a whole new phase in our lives. Shadow of Pluto is power, control dynamics, toxicity, holding on to power and control in dogmatic, but also maybe even violent or aggressive or manipulative ways. So we see the 2 different energies that are potential here, right? We can have the higher expression of Saturn-Pluto or the lower expression. And Ceres, the Great Mother, is a part of this conjunction. And we do a lot of talking about that in the 6+ hours of the webinar the Astrology of 2020. Actually, the title was The Extraordinary Planetary Alignments of 2020. And I talk about Ceres a lot in that. She is the great mother, and the spotlight is definitely on the environment with this conjunction, but also family, mothers and children, which brings to light what's going on at the border with children being taken away from their parents, and also our own sense of safety and security and where we feel we belong. This is all being magnified by this new Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Then we go in deeper into January. On the 16th, Saturn squares Eris, the goddess of discord and chaos, for only one time. And then Pluto squares Eris on the 26th for the first of 5 times, 3 of which are in 2020. So opening up into this energy of the goddess of discord and chaos. And I do a deep dive with her and her myth and her meaning in the Astrology 2020 workshop. But I'll give you a brief, understanding. Her current myth, if you've heard of her, she's the goddess that wasn't invited to the wedding. So she shows up with a golden apple. She's pissed she wasn't invited. She throws the golden apple. It says, "To the fairest." And then all the goddesses proceed to argue and kind of, vie for the apple. And you go further into the myth, this ends up leading to the Trojan War. Like, it's essentially really disruptive. But Eris is actually, in her highest expression, is an activist. She's a warrior goddess. So she comes in to expose what's in the shadow. In that myth, she exposed that there was some competition in the goddesses. Who the heck is fighting over who's the fairest, who's the most beautiful? You would think that divine beings wouldn't be doing that. And so Eris was exposing what's going on behind the scenes, competition between the sisterhood, if you will. So Eris has that kind of energy. She reveals what nobody wants to look at, what nobody's seeing. And her squares to Saturn, but especially to Pluto, because Pluto and Eris are the 2 furthest bodies out in our galaxy, or in our galaxy, in our solar system, sorry. They're really showing us what's in the far reaches, out in the unconscious, in the shadow, in the collective, but also personally. And that's why I think this is the year to be doing shadow work. Last year and this year, like gold stars, do the shadow work, get into your inner work, because my goodness, the stuff's going to be coming up. But if you have the tools to work with it, it's going to be amazing, because reclaiming your shadow is the key to fully embodying all your light. So learn more about that in the free webinar if you're interested. So that's just January. Like, seriously, it's like, boom, we're into a new year and a new decade, and it's like huge. Then we have a few other things, or a handful of other things I want to speak to. So Jupiter's in Capricorn now as of December 2nd, and he makes several alignments this year that are significant. And I'll start with the sextile to Neptune. So Jupiter in Capricorn sextiles Neptune and Pisces throughout the year 3 times. And last year, we had Saturn sextile Neptune. This year, we have Jupiter sextile Neptune. So the 2 teacher planets linking with the planet of spirituality, idealism, compassion, altruism, mysticism. It's amazing, actually, when we're linking Capricorn and Pisces, because these are the 2 signs that actually are deeply spiritual. A lot of sons of God, like Jesus and Krishna and Horus and Dionysus, were born when the sun was in Capricorn. So there's a deeply mystical energy to the sign. Pisces is the sign of the mystic. So these are 2 signs of the spiritual initiate. It's just one is more outer, one is more inner. And with Jupiter and Neptune, the 2 planets of spirituality linking all throughout the year, there is a lot of amazing opportunity for spiritual opening, spiritual awakening, but also taking that spiritual awakening and embodying it, grounding it down, bringing it fully into manifestation. So you're not like floating off the planet, having your spiritual experience, but it doesn't connect to anything in your real life, and it doesn't influence how you do the day-to-day life stuff. This is bringing these 2 together in a really amazing way. So we've got that going on all year. We also have Jupiter conjunct Pluto 3 times. And so Jupiter and Pluto is excellent for shadow work, because Jupiter is bringing light to Pluto, the shadow. It's amazing for harnessing the power of transformation and evolution and really stepping up in doing our inner work. It can also exacerbate desires for power and control, which we likely will see out in the world, in the media and politically. It'll be very interesting. But the best use of this is really those inner resources of, I want to bring light to my shadow, not so I can project it out into everyone else or try and control or dominate everyone else, so I can just really come into a whole new relationship with myself. That's going on all year. We also have Saturn hovering between the last degrees of Capricorn and the first of Aquarius. And I had this insight as I was preparing the notes for this video that I actually didn't even mention in the 6+ hours webinar because it didn't hit me then. Saturn moves into Aquarius March 21st, which is spring equinox, right around spring equinox. So at the equinox, we've got first degree of Aquarius activated. Then Saturn retrogrades back into Capricorn July 1st, but at the summer solstice, he's going to be at the first degree of Aquarius before he backtracks. Then he goes back in to Aquarius December 16th, just in time for the winter solstice, where he'll be at the first degree of Aquarius. So we've got the equinox and solstice points being massively activated by the first degree of Aquarius. And then towards the end of the year, which I'll get to at the end of the video, we're actually going to have a very powerful winter solstice. So Aquarius, the first degree of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius, like literally this is the year for bringing that age of Aquarius energy, which has been hovering with us and definitely there and kind of in different, maybe higher dimensions. This is the year to bring that age of Aquarius down and in, to embody it, to bring it into manifestation, to really birth what this age of Aquarius is all about, which is this new spiritual age we're moving into that is about awareness of how we are all interconnected. What's going on in Australia affects us. What's happening to the animals and people there affects me. What's going on in Iran, affects me. Like, we need to understand this collective consciousness. We're living in it. It's a giant soup. We're living in it and we're all affected by it, but we need to become aware of it in a more discerning cognitive way so that we can actually care about our contribution to it. And so this is a big part of the age of Aquarius. And there's different, mystical teachings and different spiritual teachers who have had lots of predictions about what this is about. And we're in it. We're in it. We're in this birthing portal. And this is an exceptional year in regards to this shift, especially seeing this first degree of Aquarius so majorly activated at all the equinoxes and solstice points. Not all of them, sorry, not at the fall equinox, but spring equinox, summer solstice, winter solstice. It's like profound. Now, some other things happening this year. We have a Venus retrograde, which is very powerful. Venus is retrograde in May and June and in Gemini. And what's so interesting about this one is she squares Neptune 3 times. And Venus is the lower heart, Neptune is the higher heart. So on one level, it can be romantic, mystical, compassionate, altruistic. It can be very beautiful, but it is a square. So it can also be delusional, deceptive, out to lunch, escapist. It's really important to take rose-colored glasses off and be seen clearly when we're dealing with anything around love, money, relationship, our values, things that Venus rules. The good news is she does sextile Chiron 3 times as well. So there's a lot of potential for healing around our self-worth and self-love if we are willing to take off the rose-colored glasses and see clearly. Then we also have the nodes of the moon moving into new signs. The mean nodes move into Gemini, North Node, and Sagittarius South Node in early June. And essentially the nodes are crossing over the Aries point, and that will be from mid-May until early June when the nodes change. And the Aries point is the first degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, first degree Aries, first degree Cancer, first degree Libra, and first degree Capricorn. They're essentially the degrees that the sun moves into when we have spring, summer, fall, and winter. In the northern hemisphere, it's reversed if you're in the southern hemisphere. So the Aries point are very important degrees. They often get triggered when there's big things happening in the world. And it's important to be really aware of what's going on when these degrees are being transited, and especially by the nodes of the moon. North Node is our evolution, our growth, our destiny. South Node is the karma and the past. And it's going to be on the Aries point, North Node Cancer, Divine Mother, the feminine, South Node Capricorn, patriarchy, the father, but also what's stagnant and stuck, tradition that we're holding on to that we need to let go of because it's not serving. Add into this, there's this very powerful summer solstice eclipse on June 20th. It's incredibly potent, and it's at the time of the North Node hovering over the first degree of Cancer. So we have a very profound summer solstice this summer, and we also go very deep into that in the 6-hour workshop. So the nodes moving into Gemini and Sagittarius are shifting into North Node Gemini. This is about beginner's mind. This is about coming back to this place of wonder and curiosity, not South Node Sagittarius shadow, self-righteousness, hubris, I'm right, you're wrong, my way or the highway. This is about coming back to that space of like, I wonder, could I be right or could I be wrong? Are there more things to understand here? I'm going to be curious. This is the beautiful energy of Gemini. We're also going to have the nodes head to activate the galactic center, 27 Sag, and also what is known as the gate of God, 27 Sag, or the golden gate, and the gate of man, 27 Gemini, or the silver gate. And these are incredibly important points in the sky. They're actually where the galactic, or the ecliptic, the points of the ecliptic meet with the galactic midplane. And they're kind of like portals to connect this world to other worlds and other dimensions. They're very mystical. They're very spiritual. And the nodes are going to be triggering that in, I believe it was, end of July, the exact alignment with the galactic center. But essentially from, all of June, July, and the first half of August, we'll have these nodes going over these gates and heading through the galactic center and aligning with the galactic sun. So really profound and powerful period of time. And then that's right in the middle of the triple eclipse portal. That'll be through end of spring and through summer. We have lunar eclipse June 5th, solar eclipse June 20th, and then a lunar eclipse July 4th, which is the USA birthday. So the birthday chart for the USA, for those who live there or are interested, we have a lunar eclipse in our solar return chart for our country, which is heralding big things for the USA, which again, we go in super deep into all of this in the 6-hour workshop. We have Mars retrograde September through October and into November. And this is a doozy of a retrograde. He's retrograde in the sign he rules, Aries. And he is triggering Pluto and Eris and Saturn and Jupiter. He's like triggering all these squares to Eris and all these conjunctions in the Capricorn sign. So it's an intense Mars retrograde. Venus retrograde is a time to rethink, reevaluate rather, sorry, not the rethink, although it is in Gemini, so there can be a thinking element. Reevaluate what we love, what we desire, what we want in relationship, what we want in terms of abundance, or how we deal with our money. Mars is a time to rein in our will and drive when he's retrograde, which is not what he likes to do. So there can either be this internalization of pulling Mars back, depression, feeling stuck, feeling stagnant, or it could be really triggering and it could be frustrating and irritating and aggressive and, Mars in Aries is interesting. And his trigger of Eris is going to be pretty interesting. We talk about election day in the USA and the stuff that's going on in the UK, but election day in the USA is quite fascinating. Mars is retrograde, Mercury stations direct that morning. Stationary Mercury can be iffy. So that'll be interesting. And then we have another eclipse portal, November 30th, lunar eclipse in Gemini, December 14th, solar eclipse in Sagittarius. Now we're officially in the Gemini Sag eclipses. The eclipses always align with the nodes of the moon. So we've been in Cancer Capricorn eclipses, and now we're shifting into new energies. And again, spotlights on coming back to beginner's mind, opening our mind, learning new things, not thinking we know it all. And really seeing where we act like we know it all, personally, as a country, collectively, as a humanity. This is a time to open up to higher teachings and be willing to learn, be willing to be a student. Even if you are the best teacher or, very accomplished teacher, coming back to the beginning and being open is going to be important this year. And then it leads to the winter solstice. We have a profound winter solstice, and I am in the works of planning a trip to Egypt with a dear sister, Jackie Lalita. So there'll be astrology and belly dancing in Egypt with the sacred sites and mystical mystery teachings and ritual and ceremony. It's going to be phenomenal. I'm so excited. So if you're interested, I'll actually put a link to email contact form on my website. You can send an email and just say, I'm interested in the trip, and I can put you on a list to contact as soon as we have everything dialed in, but it's going to be amazing. And so that month, December, we have Saturn finally moving into Aquarius again, where he'll stay for good. So hitting the first degree again. On the 16th, Jupiter moves into Aquarius on the 19th. And then we have the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction on the 21st, on the winter solstice, seeding the new consciousness, the age of Aquarius, bringing it into embodiment. Remember the solstice, well, actually, if you study with me or you listen to my gate calls, the winter solstice is the time of the rebirth of the sun. So through the solar gates, as the sun moves through the different 8 gates of the year, the very end of the cycle happens right before winter solstice. It's the death of the sun. It's the days of the least amount of light, very internal time. And then at the winter solstice, the sun stands still and starts to rebirth itself. It starts to move higher. And as you track it, you'll see it moving slowly, very slowly, higher on the horizon, or not on the horizon. You'll see it elevating in declination. And then it's going to make its way to summer solstice, the day of the longest day of light. And so it's the rebirth of the sun happening at the time of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, the 2 teacher planets in the first degree of Aquarius, which is the sign of the visionary and, collective understanding and community, and understanding that we are all one and we do affect each other, and we need to find common ground. We need to find common vision. And this is absolutely amazing. It's a very profound winter solstice. And the summer solstice is amazing as well. So this year, and the solstice and the equinoxes are always quite profound, but this year they're like phenomenal. And for those of you that are new to me, I have a website, divineharmony.com, where I write a lot of content and record things. Some of it's free, some of it's membership service. And I do these solar gate calls for the 8 gates of the wheel of the year, for the solstices, the equinoxes, and then the cross quarter points between them, which are traditionally known as Imbolc, Beltane, Lugnasa, and Samhain. I do these 1.5-hour calls with astrology and mythology and shadow work, offerings and journaling prompts, and then they all end with a guided meditation. And I also do these for the lunar gates, for the new moons. So there's 12 or 13 new moons each year. There's either 13 new moons or 13 full moons each year. So there's always 13 of some aspect of the lunar cycle. And I do gate calls that are about an hour for the new moons and about the upcoming lunar cycle. So this is part of my Galactic Benefactor membership. If you've never tried a membership on my website, I have a free month trial, so you can check it out if you want to. So that is the year ahead. As I said, I've got 6+ hours of teaching about 2020, where we go into a lot of stuff, and we look at charts of political figures, and we look at historical cycles of Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter and Saturn. And then day 2 is all about the personal application. What does this mean for you? If, the Saturn and Pluto conjunction's on your sun, or if the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius is on your moon, or what house it falls in. And then we actually offer rituals, because there's 2 seeding points. I mean, there's more than 2, but there's 2 that we focused on in the webinar. One is the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in January. The other is the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in December. And we wrote rituals that you can use, and you can, alter them to whatever works best for you if you want to, but they're opportunities to bring magical intention to these new cycles being seeded, and helping you to call in what you're really ready to embody in January, in December, and in the coming cycles that follow. So I will put the link to that below. And last but not least, come join me in my free webinar, Astrology and Your Shadow. This truly is an exceptional year to do deep inner work. Really, the inner work we do is going to contribute to the outer shift that we're all, ready for on the planet. And I'll be going into very deeply what shadow is, why it's important right now, how you can work with it for healing and wholeness and awakening and even enlightenment. Because, Carl Jung said, enlightenment is not about imagining figures of light. It's about making the darkness conscious. As we make everything conscious and we bring it all back into wholeness, that is true awakening. That is enlightenment that has been embodied. And that is what I hope to share with you in the free webinar. So I hope you'll join in. The link will be down there below. Many blessings. I'm coming back to doing videos again. I've set up this nice little area in my house to record. And so I used to do this a while back and then I sort of fell off, and I'm coming back. So I'm really excited. So hopefully you will follow me and like my YouTube channel or whatever it is you do. And I'll be posting more. So many blessings on a beautiful, powerful, transformative new year, new decade, new Saturn-Pluto cycle. And we call it all in with grace and ease. Many blessings.